Hello, and welcome to yet another volume of Andre's Favorite Music. Now, this is actually going to probably end up being a, 5 or 6 part list, but I'm going to start with this one. For some reason, a lot of the favorite albums I have in my collection wind up being Quincy Jones productions, and this is one of my favorite, George Benson's Give Me the Night. Now, you all know this song, but this is just a fantastic album. I could go on forever describing how wonderful this album is. So, I'm just going to go past this. If you like Michael Jackson, Thriller, Off the Wall, this is an album for you. This man plays and sings like you wouldn't believe. And if you don't know it, check it out. Anything George Benson. You probably already have, but you want to check out more. Seriously, seriously talented man. I discovered this man very organically. Now, I only knew Gino Vanelli by one song, but on albums such as this, he was like a pioneer of progressive funk pop with synthesizers by his brother Joe and keyboard textures, sometimes even more abstract than what Stevie Wonder and Les McCann were doing at the time. This is a song called People Gotta Move, which was a huge hit, and the title track, Powerful People, actually talks about ecology, and it's very apropos today. This man has an amazing singing voice, of the likes of which you'll never hear, especially on this album. Almost jazzily operatic. It's just, this is a very unique guy, and he made a number of these electronic funk symphonies on this album, a concept album about growing into manhood called Storm It Sun Up. I think I know what that cover was pretty much designed for, basically. A third, Gist of the Gemini, I should say, about the dual end of human nature, another electronic symphony. And what I think is his best, this could almost be in a movie, A Pauper in Paradise. It contains 4 vocal pieces that are very spiritual and uplifting, and an instrumental Pauper in Paradise suite at the end of the album. Very, rich, very romantic, beautiful collection. On this album, Gino Vanelli changed up a bit and made an album that wasn't such an electronic symphony after all, more live instrumentation, and this had a big hit for him. I Just Want to Stop and Wheels of Life. Those are the songs you probably know Gino Vanelli for. It's a good album, but not 100% as innovative as the ones I just demonstrated. Still a good one. He came out with this later before having record company problems. They wouldn't let him do what he wanted to do. So he made this album called Nightwalker in '81. This is a Russian import, probably. Again, I don't know if it's in print anymore. And this album contains a hit called Living Inside Myself. He became more of a, I guess you'd call it a soft rock artist by this point. There's other songs on this album called Stay With Me where he's still jazzy and unique and interesting and all of that. You get that a lot here, too. Now, this album is now available on an import twofer, but when I got it by George Duke, you'll see a lot of him in my collection, by the way. It was only available through George Duke's website in 2004-03, I think, distributed by his son Rashid. Now, this is his album From Me to You, his first on Epic. It's a very broad, elaborate funk production, very similar to what Earth, Wind & Fire were doing, only sonically much more incredible. If you haven't heard this album yet, check it out. I mean, if you only knew George Duke for his 80s pop stuff, this shows you what an absolute artist he is, and the level of emotion here is just an amazing record. Now, the George Duke, Guardian of the Light from 1983. Now, this is somewhat of a concept album, and it contains some very, very funky songs and some great dance material, and some good ballads, too. It's kind of the beginning of his journey into the 80s. It's a follow-up to his album Dream On, which we saw earlier. There's some great individual songs like Silly Fightin' and Light, and which we're going to hear on this album, but it's a concept album, really should be heard all the way through to get the full gist of it. Now, honestly, I wish I could put more Earth, Wind & Fire in my collection, but I just wouldn't have any space. This is their album, all in all. It contains Fantasy, Serpentine Fire, Brazilian Rhyme. If you know those songs, that's all you need to know. probably in a lot of people's classic collections. And, you know, I could go on and on talking about Earth, Wind & Fire and their importance to music, culturally and musically. Just the cover art alone, and the back cover art. I think we should end that discussion there now. Go on forever. Now, this is I Am. Now, even people who are a lot of my friends, a lot of them are my friends, don't care much for this album, produced by David Foster, 1979, 8, whatever. This album contains a couple hits called After the Love Is Gone, and lesser-known one called In the Stone. It's a little more of a poppy sound for them. The bass player in the band, Verdine White, brother of band leader Verdine, Maurice White, called this album their Abbey Road, which was a Beatles album made 10 years earlier before this. And it was the end of an era for them, kind of the beginning of a new one, transitional album, but very upbeat. Oh, Boogie Wonderland's on this too. Some people thought this album was a bit of a sellout, but if you listen to this album in its entirety, look up some other cuts like Star and Rock That and I Can't Let Go, pretty much anything else on the album, you'll be confronted with music that is definitely not sellout. This is pretty good Earth, Wind & Fire overall, you know. This album is Earth, Wind & Fire's 1981 album, Powerlight. Let's Groove is kind of controversial. Those who love their hits or dance music love Let's Groove. Those who like Earth, Wind & Fire's old music cringe at it. Even the band weren't that happy with it. But again, when you get to Lady Sun, Evolution Orange, You're a Winner, These Changing Times, I Want to Be With You, Be My Love, this album has nothing to do with making hits. Some of the lyrics are downright obscure and very, very deeply spiritual, so it's no wonder they put a hit like Let's Groove at the beginning of this album, which has nothing to do with the rest of it. Worthwhile album to listen to, full of a lot of heavy grooves and messages, except for the one hit, which is very, very different. Worth seeking out as an album, not to get for the hit, but for the rest of the album. This record didn't do so well for Earth, Wind & Fire. This is called Powerlight. It's very gutsy, almost rocky in parts. It features the late Roland Bautista on guitar. Probably many of you don't know his name. Fall in Love With Me was the hit, but there's a lot of great songs on here. Spread Your Love, Side by Side, Freedom of Choice, great message song. Again, a lot more of that boogie funk. Very powerful musically, very heavy thud to it. Another Quincy Jones, The Dude, 1981. The album song that most people will go in for on this album would be, I think it was Just Once by James Ingram. But Patty Austin did some great music on here. Again, if you like that Michael Jackson 70s stuff, George Benson, Give Me the Night, you'll love this. She did a great song called Razzmatazz on here, which is an incredible Spizta-funk kind of song. And The Dude actually features Quincy Jones rapping. To understand where Quincy Jones comes from, there's this dude character on the cover. This is a really good album to go into. Michael Jackson isn't on it, but Herbie Hancock is. Toots Thielemans, George Benson, I believe. Well, I don't know if he's on that. And what's his name? James Ingram, Patty Austin. Great record. Worth seeking out. Now, again, the Jacksons are another group I could put in my collection. And this is an album I only found out some years later. It comes between Michael Jackson's solo album and Off the Wall. And you find out on this album, with the way it's subdivided, that there are two talents in the Jacksons, and only one of them is Michael, that are actually quite underrated. And I'll zoom in on them right now. It's the late Michael Jackson, who you will see to your left, and Randy, the young man in the middle. Randy Jackson, not the American Idol guy, by the way, Michael's younger brother, is actually a really competent singer-songwriter in his own right. And Michael, well, you all know him. This showcases Michael kind of taking all the lead singing roles. There's some great songs on here. Your Ways, which is really brooding. There's a lot of Thriller elements you can hear on this album. If you like Michael Jackson and you like Thriller, and you love Off the Wall, and you want to see what happened between, this is it. Can You Feel It's on here? One of the hit. A lot of great dance tunes, and a very innovative kind of electronic song called Wondering Who, written and recorded by Jackie on vocals, which is actually a very interesting kind of song, very futurist. So that's the next part of this album collection that I have, and Stay tuned for part 3. It's coming up next.